buddy?
Not much, but apparently Max doesn't fit in on the show because he said he's just trying to bring positivity and, shine a light in people's lives. That's not really our thing.
There are days we are very positive. Today we've been very positive. I think you will shoot some of the Raider positivity down. I have to start with something I don't know. I'm sure you caught it and a couple other media members caught it. Did Maxx Crosby made reference to Pete Carroll and him competing all the time? Did he say that he played a game of pig with Coach Pete?
He did, but then he kind of dropped in that Carroll wouldn't go horse.
Right.
Which I have to imagine that it was like, all right, let's just stop here after 3. And then Pete Carroll also apparently has demanded that Max work his way up by winning some other matches to get a rematch.
Oh, is that right? Well, first of all, how is he going to win other matches when he's rehabbing?
Yeah, I mean, that's the other thing. I mean, I'm sure Max couldn't use any kind of push or athleticism. Like, his ankle's still messed up. So maybe Pete Carroll kind of taking advantage of that situation. But I will say, I think it's fair to say I don't think it's spilling any secrets because it's kind of been out there on social media. But Max has a ridiculous basketball gym at his place. Like, I'm wondering if he got the home court advantage or if they, played somewhere neutral. But it'd be tough to go into Max's court at his house and beat him. That's kind of rough.
Well, if they play a year from now, you're the rules maven on everything. When you play pig or horse and one person can dunk and the other can't, what do you do?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's shoot from wherever he lifts off, you can shoot from.
Okay. But
that is a tough one. I mean, that is tough. I mean, look, I have a big problem with the game in general because you always see people not doing the actual move.
Right.
And it drives me nuts. If you're like, hey, crossover, cross back, between the legs, fade away, and somebody just stands there and shoots the same shot, you're like, no, that wasn't the shot. What are you talking about? But the dunk one is pretty tough because, I mean, you can just say, like, I'm just going to go up and dunk 3 times and the game's over. The bigger issue, I think, to me, is if you said you're playing horse and then you just stopped after 3, like, I have a problem with that. Like, I don't like to change the rules midstream if that's what happens.
Will you let this go, or is this something you bring up to Pete Carroll in a couple of months?
I'd already put in a request in. I have to get to the bottom of it.
Okay.
I don't want to wait 3 months either. We have to talk about this soon.
Adam Hill from the Las Vegas Review-Journal. All the hard-hitting coverage of the Raiders you want. I saw you tweet out a bunch of Raiders defensive coaches, staffers, Pat Graham, in the media room at the facility for the Maxx Crosby presser. What did that mean to you?
I mean, I think it's a show of solidarity and support. Obviously, Maxx Crosby has been a leader in the locker room for a lot of the players. He set the example. Everybody kind of talks about what he does in terms of his work ethic, driving kind of the entire thing, and the fact that all those guys wanted to take time out of their day. And look, it's kind of easy right now. You're not really in there grinding tape or anything. I mean, you're doing a lot of work preparing, but you can take the 20 minutes away and go into the presser and show them that you support them. And it's the same reason we saw Max and a couple players at the Pete Carroll presser. The difference with that one is that that's in a massive room. They do that in the team room where there's a ton of space. A ton of people fit in there. The media room is small.
Yeah.
And so the fact that they had like 12 or 13, I kind of stopped counting, but coaches and staffers in there from the defense, and then Max had several of his people from his agency. Max's wife and kid were in there, although they left very early because Ella was she wanted to be a part of the show. I think they sent a letter. She was trying to talk a lot, and Max's wife got her out of there pretty quickly. I thought it was great. I think they should have let that go, but. So they left, but it was just a lot of people crammed into that room, which made it very noticeable how many people were there to support Max.
Does this Maxx Crosby mega extension send a message that, hey, we mean business? Pat Graham is back as DC. Hey, free agent defensive players that have been on our squad, stay. Can they cut some good deals with some of these free agents who could go elsewhere?
I mean, maybe, but do you also say, hey, like, you just paid him the biggest contract ever for a non-quarterback? Where's mine? Look,
right.
You want me to stay around? Show me that love. Like, that's what we're doing. We're rewarding guys for their efforts. I put in some pretty good effort. Where's my above market value deal? Now, it's easy to come back and say you're not Maxx Crosby, and I get that. But yes, I think part of this is we're doing this before free agency, and I think John Spytek made it very clear we didn't have to do this now. Like, he was under contract for 2 more years. They could have waited until free agency was done and made this deal if they wanted to. They could have just told him, hey, you're coming back. We're We don't care if you don't have any guaranteed money. That's your problem, not ours. They could have waited. They could have done all that. But I think the timing of the message of the timing was clear. Like, we're bringing him back, we're rewarding him, and he's here to help recruit other people to come in as well. So I think that was all done kind of intentionally before the start of free agency.
Adam Hill on the extension to Maxx Crosby. He was out at the facility today around all the Raiders brass. Maxx Crosby made a point of mentioning it multiple times that being the face of the franchise is cool. This extension is cool, but the reason he's around is that he likes the organization and he feels like there's a good attitude. There's a winning way. He wants to be around winners. Give me a reaction to that first, and I got to follow up.
Yeah, I mean, that's what he said. I mean, if you wanted to be around, if you guaranteed want to be around winning, you would have forced your way out and gone somewhere else where you're sure that you're going to win.
Right.
I think it is important. He wants to win. He wants to be a part of this. I think he sees it. This is not a critique of him. I think there is a part inside of him that says, "Hey, it's been so bad here. If this gets turned around, like, I get a lot of credit for that." And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Like, I think that's fine. I think there's something to be said about wanting to be the one that makes that happen instead of saying, I'm going to go somewhere else where it already is happening. It's a challenge, but it's one he's embracing, and it's one he wants to be a part of. And I think he's been pretty clear that he wants to be in the Hall of Fame. He wants to be known as one of the best ones ever. That's not going to happen if you continue to lose every single year. So it is incumbent on him to help turn things around, and he thinks he can do it here, and that's why he re-upped.
How would you best describe Maxx Crosby's mood, say, back in December when he was around and he's watching the team kind of fall apart, not play great football? At one point, Jack Jones is, not he's pulling up, not making max effort. What do you think his attitude was about the organization before they brought on Pete Carroll?
Well, was he around? I didn't see him very much.
To you, what did that say?
Well, he was hurt, and he was hurt pretty bad. And I think there's no reason to, be, further risking injury to be walking around and, putting weight on that kind of thing, being a part of that. He was around occasionally, and he was seen even when he wasn't playing, but it wasn't like he was in there every single day. So it was kind of tough to gauge the mood. And I think he was around when he was in a good mood, when he wanted to be around, he wanted to be, inspirational, but the season definitely took a toll on him. I don't think there's any question. And, that's kind of what I asked him about today. My question was just about, how driven are you by the fact that you weren't able to play much last year, that even when you were on the field, it wasn't, you weren't able to give your usual performances because you clearly were hurt, from that. It was the last play of the week 2 game is when he got hurt. Tried to play through it a little bit, but never really was healthy. So I think he's driven by that. I think he's motivated by that. And I do think there was times last year where he was down and not thrilled with the direction things were going. And certainly, he got very close with Devontae Adams, and the fact that he was gone was difficult for him to deal with. But I do think, he was one of the guys that I said he was there for the Pete Carroll and John Spytek press conference. And I think that said a lot about him being very interested in what they had to say and interested in whether or not he could trust the direction that he thought the franchise was going to go and needed to go. And he clearly heard enough in those conversations to recommit to being here.
I made a big deal in hour 1 about the money commitment. $91.5 million is guaranteed. Going back to, the era when Gruden comes in and they're like, Khalil Mack and Mari Cooper got to go. They would never admit it, that, money was an issue. Is this a big statement for you that with the new investments, the increasing value of the franchise, that the Raiders can play in the, as I keep calling it, the big boy sandbox when it comes to a money standpoint?
Yeah, I mean, look, they've got the resources now. There's no question. I mean, they got not only all the influx of money that we gave them, it's all for you. We gave them money. They made a bunch of money on the stadium. There's no question about that. And they just took on capital investments of a lot of money that was flooded into the franchise. And I think that was by design. It wasn't just, hey, I'm giving away part of my team. It was some getting liquid, but also some, hey, we want cash on hand, and we want to have a stockpile of money to be able to be aggressive. And they've done that, and they have the money. They certainly have the cap space. They've got everything that they need to, all the resources are in place. Great facility, great town, obviously tax-friendly state, all those things. You would think, recruiting tools with Tom Brady and now Maxx Crosby around, the energy of a John Spytek as a first-time GM, a guy who knows just about everybody in the league already and has a great reputation. And Pete Carroll with his legendary reputation, like there's nothing else they could ask for in terms of setting up to be aggressive this offseason. They've got all the resources there. Now it's a matter of making the right decision.
Adam Hill is with us, part of the company. He's back on Cofield Company tomorrow, as we'll be doing the live show at Stadium Swim at Circa. You tweeted earlier today, pretty sure Raiders fans will react better to Maxx Crosby extension news than their other signing today. What's that a reference to?
Alex Kappa, who is now in the mix with the Raiders. A lot of mixed feelings about this one, I think, for a lot of people. I don't think it's unfair to say Alex Kappa was the worst player in the league last year. I mean, that's pretty strong, but he was terrible. Now, he's been good in the past. Now, when you look at, we talk about how bad the Cincinnati Bengals offensive line was, and he was maybe the biggest culprit on that offensive line for why they were so bad. It was a down year for sure. Now, are there other reasons that went into that? Was it a bad fit for him schematically? Was he injured? We don't know any of those things because Alex Kappa has been very good in the past. Like, there's a reason he was signed to a big deal there. They thought he was going to help fix that line. And John Spytek is a guy that's been around him and trusts him and believes in him. And so I'm not surprised that that move was made. I think there's reasons to be optimistic that he could bounce back. But fans immediately were just like, he sucks, he's the worst, he's terrible. Okay, let's maybe explore why. And I don't know why he had an off year. Well, I'd love to hear from him, and we will soon enough when he finally talks. But I think that there's a trust factor of John Spytek who's been around him for a while that something was there that was affecting his performance that is not going to affect him going forward and that he can be good. And by the way, they didn't commit a whole lot to him. So if he's not, move on and maybe take a chance that he can be helpful to the interior of the offensive line.
Let's wrap on this one. Raiders going in the not so far way back machine, but Greg Olsen is back on the staff. Why did Greg Olsen call Shedeur Sanders brash and arrogant?
I don't know that he did.
I don't think he did either, but he is one of the 7 quarterback coaches in the top 7 that Josina Anderson said. One of them said and kept telling everyone that Shedeur is brash and arrogant.
Yeah. By the way, so everybody's focusing on Josina's report.
Yeah.
There was another one, and I don't know if you saw it or how many people did see it. It was buried in a column by another writer. There's a fantasy writer who every year does, 25 rumors coming out of the combine, and he wrote up his column, and it's pretty long, so it's extensive, but I think a lot of people missed it. His came out, I believe, before Josina's did, and he said two offensive coaches that were picking high in the draft, which I assume to mean top 5, had told him the interview was a disaster with Shedeur Sanders.
Oh, wow.
And again, this is before Josina came out with her report that kind of blew up social media yesterday. So, look, the word was out there. I heard the same thing from some people that were there, from some teams that were kind of putting it out there like, yikes, not great. And, the other thing that I've heard is the gap between 1 and 2 is far bigger than the gap between 2 and 3 in terms of the quarterbacks.
Right.
Coming out of the combine. That Jackson Dart is much closer to Shedeur Sanders than Shedeur is to Cam Ward, who, from everything I heard, people absolutely fell in love with at the combine. So I think solidified maybe his standing as the number 1 QB, Cam Ward in this class, and Shedeur, maybe has some things to prove, and you never know. It's maybe coaches putting that out there because they loved him and they want to turn other people against him and want to throw up smoke screens. You never know at this time of year, but I had heard the same thing before Josina put it out there, so I don't think it should be all a lot of people are attacking her for saying it or putting it out there. It's around. The word was out, and again, whether that's real or smoke screen, we don't know, but people are talking about it.
ReviewJournal.com. Adam Hill, part of the company. He'll be back with us tomorrow for the full show at Circa Las Vegas. Adam, thank you.
Anytime.
Let your voice be heard by texting the Finley Kia